Good day, everybody. I hope that you are well and also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, we'll be doing our grade 5 English lesson on sensory details. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once you've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English Language Arts. We're doing grade 5. And then we're going to scroll down up until we get to our chapter of sensory details. Right. So our chapter for today is sensory details. Our subject is English Language Arts. We're doing grade 5. And the lessons that we are going to be focusing on today under the chapter of sensory details. So we're going to identify sensory details. All right. And sensory details, right? When we talk about sensory details, then if we just look at the word sensor or sensory, right? Then it basically gives us an idea that sensory is to do with our senses, right? And our senses include things that we can see, things that we can taste, things that we can touch, things that we can smell, and things that you can hear. Those are your senses. So basically, writers they use sensory details. So in their writing, they write sensory details, and these sensory details are there to basically make your writing or make the reading or make the text or make the story more interesting. Because remember, if you, as a reader, right, as somebody who reads or picks up a book and you are reading a book, right, when you get to, let's say, depending on the type of book that you take, right, there's no pictures. So, which means that you cannot see the pictures of that or whatever that the writer is trying to tell us, right? So, you need to basically try and make sense of what the writer is trying to say. And by you making sense, by us making sense of what the writer is trying to tell us, the writer then uses all these sensory details within the story, right? To make the story or to make the scenes or to make the text more easier for us, to make it more easier for us as readers to understand and to imagine. That is why they try to bring about an image that like you don't they don't show you what you can see, but they basically describe characters within a story that will basically show you like, okay, this is what the person looks like, or this is what the thing looks like. They will create sounds within the story to give you an idea or to create an idea as though you are there hearing the specific sound, but there is no sound. Because remember, when it comes to reading, we need to use our imagination. It's not like on the movies. And once again, we say that writers use sensory details, and that is to make the stories or to make scenes more easier for us as readers to imagine. We need to imagine sounds, we need to imagine what something tastes like. That is why they would make sounds. Let's say, for example, they're eating something and they'll use things like nom nom, or they will tell you how lovely something was. So they would describe the food. They would either describe it as being nice or it wasn't nice. They would even describe how the person feels. They would try to bring about an idea of bringing about how something smells, right? What they can touch, what they can see, and the sounds that they hear. And a sensory detail, right? It makes the reader imagine a particular sight, things that we can see, a particular sound, things that we can hear, smell, taste, and touch. And that is our sensory details. So, our five senses, right? So, our five senses are, it's your eyes because you can see for sight, it's touch, it's smell, it's hearing, which is sound, and then it is taste. That is our sensory details. So it's see, it's your vision, it's what you can, it's your sight. Hearing, it's the sound, things that you can hear, things that you can touch, smell, and taste. All right. So now, if we look at examples, right? If we look at examples of either things that you can see or sight, things that you can hear or sound, things that you can smell, things that you can taste or touch, these are now examples of how the writer would try and basically, for example, make scenes easier for us as readers to imagine. So we're going to look at an example or examples of the type of wording or sentences that the writer would then use in order to make these scenes more easy for us to imagine. For example, sight, things that you can see. The writer would then use something like, in a sentence that would be like, John's face glowed from the light of the fire. So John's face glowed from the light of the fire. So now you must know that John is close to somewhere where there's a fire. John's face glows. You're not trying to imagine how the light of the fire would basically kind of show that John's face is glowing. Yes, you may. Yes, I caught a whiff of freshly folded clothes. Yes, a whiff of freshly, especially that word whiff of freshly folded clothes. Freshly will give us an idea that it is, you'll get that nice smell, that stay soft smell that you'll get from the clothes, especially when the clothes are clean and fresh. And the emphasis is on fresh, freshly folded clothes. Yes, I can read it. Thank you. I actually like that example. Because if you look at your example, right, especially you putting emphasis on a whiff of folded clothes, right, we would be able to get an idea of how it smells, right? Because if it is not washed, imagine the laundry is mixed with socks, old socks because you played soccer, because you played sports. Um, so now it's been standing there all week because maybe your parent does the laundry once a week. So clearly, you're not going to get the whiff of the freshly clothes at all because it's not fresh at all. So there's going to be a dampy smell in that laundry. So well done. The next one says sound, right? How we can imagine sound. It says, in the morning, Samantha awoke to the chirping of birds outside her window. So the chirping of birds. And the chirping of birds also gives you an idea, right? That the person also lives very far also from the city. Sometimes you will also get an idea of location based on what you say, like things like chirping of birds. Sometimes you can even hear somebody saying was woken by the sound of the trains, by the sound of cars. Now it will give you an idea that this person either lives very, like, extremely deep in the city, so these are all wording that will give us an idea of, or that will basically make sense of the details that is being used within a text. Yes, my brother's clothes shined under the sun. Yes, well done. Go ahead. I'm looking at all of the I am looking at the comments, so you can make an example anytime. Yes, my brother's clothes shined under the sun. Well done. So that is also to do with sight. All right, now we're going on to smell. Yes. If we look at that example, my brother's clothes shines under the sun. Sometimes it can be either how clean it is, or it can be depending on the type of clothes that they wear. So now you will get an idea, like, he's got a beautiful jacket on. This jacket is, it's new. They're putting emphasis on maybe something also being new, right? It is new, it is fresh. It is a newly bought item that he is trying to flash in front of his friends. So well done. The next one is smell. Smell. It says, I caught a whiff of freshly baked bread as I passed the bakery, especially in the morning when they are baking the breads, they are baking the rolls. So, whenever you walk past a bakery, you will get that freshly baked bread smell that will basically lock you in. And have you ever tasted bread that has just been baked? The soft and maybe crunch by the side of the bread, you would literally almost eat a whole bread, especially if the bread is fresh. It was just baked already. The smell locks you to go into the store, but now even still tasting, a slice of that bread that was just baked, you would literally almost eat half or whole of the bread. So here we also have another example of smell. Freshly baked bread. I think by now all of us should at least have an idea of how bread smells, or how something smells when something is fresh. And then we have taste. Taste. It says the sharply sour apple made by Mary's mouth pucker. So the sharply sour apple made Mary's mouth pucker. They're already putting emphasis on the sharply sour apple. Now just try to imagine eating something extremely sour. How does your mouth feel? It feels like your tongue is numbing because of how sour something is. So yeah, they're giving you an idea also of an example of how something tastes. They're not saying how sweet something is. They're saying that this specific thing is sour and it makes your mouth to pucker. Your tongue is literally like feeling some type of way. And then the last one we have touch. And it says Ted was uncomfortable in his scratchy woolly sweater. So he wasn't just uncomfortable in his sweater, but here they're specifically putting emphasis on scratchy woolly sweater. Now you must know he had on this woolly t-shirt or sweater and he was constantly scratching. He was probably moving his body all the time to kind of give him that, to avoid the itch because it was uncomfortable against his skin. Right? So these are a few examples of sensory details or how writers use sensory details to make stories and scenes more easy for us as the readers to imagine. Because remember, the older you get, there is no pictures in the book. You'll even find a book with not even a picture on, there's just words on. So you will have to use your imagination, and that is where our sensory details comes in. Because now our sensory details make it, as for the reader, it makes us as the readers to imagine a particular thing that we can see and sound that we can hear and something that we can smell and taste and touch. Right? And in every story, in order for the writer to make it more interesting, in order for us to imagine, they use sensory details, things that you can see, things that you can touch, smell, the sounds that you can hear, and things that you can taste. All right, so now we're going to aplusstudents.ca, and we're going to the chapter of sensory details. And the lesson that we are focusing on today is to identify sensory details. So we're going to identify sensory details within the text. All right. And we said that writers they use sensory details to make stories and scenes or acts or things that we hear. They make it more easier for the readers to imagine. And we are the readers. Any person that picks up a book and that reads something, we are those readers, right? And a sensory detail, it makes the reader to imagine a particular sight, things that we can see, a particular sound, things that we can hear, particular smell, taste, or touch. All right. So now we're going to look at a few examples, and then we're going on to our test. All right. It says we need to select the sentence. Looking at the first one, it says we need to select the sentence with a sensory detail that describes how something feels, how something feels to the touch. Right? So we need to select the sentence with a sensory detail that describes how something feels to the touch. It says, it was getting late as Henry walked down the street. He felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Was somebody following him, or was that his imagination again? Just then, his brother Bruce ran up. Bruce explained that everyone was waiting for Henry to get home for dinner. Henry breathed a sigh of relief. He might not admit it to Bruce, but he was glad Bruce was here. So, what in this text gives us an idea or describes how something feels to the touch to someone? So, what sentence or what words within this text gives us the idea or that describes how something feels to the touch? Once again, it says, it was getting late as Henry walked down the street. He felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Was somebody following him, or was that his imagination again? Just then, his brother Bruce ran up. Bruce explained that everybody was waiting for Henry to get home for dinner. Henry breathed a sigh of relief. He might not admit it to Bruce, but he was glad Bruce was here. What few words or sentence tells us that or describes how Henry felt. Yes, and cold shiver. That is correct, right? It says he felt a cold shiver run down his spine. And if you feel the cold shiver, how would you describe a cold shiver? When and how do you usually use, not use, sorry, how or when do you usually feel a cold shiver? And how does it actually make you feel? Like, when do you usually get that type of feelings? When we are happy, when we are sensing danger, when we are anxious, or how? So, when do we usually experience feeling that cold shiver run down our spine? And we usually feel that cold shiver when you're either anxious about something, when you're kind of sensing danger, when it feels like somebody is following you. Then it's almost like that feeling, almost like, you're constantly looking behind you or you're constantly on an edge, right? So that gives us the idea, or that describes how something or someone feels with a touch. All right. Let's look at the next one. It says we need to select the sentence with a sensory detail that describes taste. Describes taste. It says Steve won the 200-meter race with a burst of speed at the finish. He was the new state champion. As Steve caught his breath, his coach and teammates all rushed over to congratulate him. Everyone was cheering. Steve had never been happier or hungrier. To celebrate, Steve's parents took him to his favorite restaurant. His meal came with the best tangy barbecue sauce that he had ever had. It was a dinner fit for a champion. And if we look at that sentence, right, or that text, or that scene or something, what is a sensory detail that describes taste? What is the sensory detail that describes taste? So, what within that sentence or that paragraph describes taste? And the wording or the sentence that describes taste, right? is the tangy barbecue sauce that they put either on his meat, that they either put on his hot dog roll, on his bun or something, on his burger, depending on what they eat. They're not telling us what he eats, but we know it's either he has it on his meat or his burger or something, right? All right, so now we're going to our test where we are going to identify sensory details. It says, my brother Zain, we need to select a sentence with a sensory detail that describes how something feels to the touch. How something feels to the touch. It says, my brother Zain works at the petting zoo. That's where little kids can go if they want to pet some animals. The zoo operators put only the gentlest animals in that section of the zoo. I asked Zane which of the animals is his favorite. He said that he likes the baby llama because he likes to stroke her soft, silky fur. I think I like the baby ducklings the best. We need to select the sentence with the sensory details that describes how something feels to the touch. Is it option one in line one? Is it option two? It is soft and silky fur, or option three, line three? Which one is correct? Option one, two, or three? Yes, we have 4 more minutes left. Almost done. We need to select the sensory detail that describes how something feels to the touch. Is it option one, option two, or option three? And if we were to select the sentence with the sensory details that describe how something feels to the touch, then we'll go with option two. Because we said that the llama is soft and has silky fur, has soft, silky fur. The next one says, we need to select the sentence with a sensory detail that describes how something feels to the touch. How something feels to the touch. All right, and it says, it was getting late as Henry walked down the street. He felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Was somebody following him, or was that his imagination again? Just then his brother Bruce ran up. Bruce explained that everyone was waiting for Henry to get home for dinner. Henry breathed a sigh of relief. He might not admit it to Bruce, but he was glad Bruce was here. If we look at our text that we just read, right? What is the our sensory details that describes how something feels to the taste? Is it option one, cold shiver, or option two, was waiting? All right, and if we were to select the correct option, we would go with option one. He felt a cold shiver. Well done. All right, and the last one says we need to select the sentence with a sensory detail that describes sound. This is the last one. It says Rosa pulled on her cap and climbed onto the tractor, ready to plow her vegetable garden. She turned the switch and heard the engine grinding and whining, but it wouldn't start. Rosa went into the barn to get her horses to pull the plow. She'd rather work with her horses anyway. And maybe now she would advertise that her beets and broccoli were all natural. So we need to select the sentence with a sensory detail that describes sound. Is it option one, engine grinding and whining? Or option two, work with her horses? Which one is correct? Option one or option two? And if we were to select our correct option, yes, we'll go with option one. We heard the engine grinding and whining. Well done. All right, so this is the end of our lesson on identifying sensory details. We see that writers would want to make stories interesting or scenes interesting within stories by using sensory details to try and make us imagine either how something smells or something tastes or something feels, right? But by using the five senses. All right, so this is the end of our lesson. Thank you very much, Grade 5, for joining the class and for interacting. And I really hope that you're going to have a good day further. So, till next time, goodbye.